Gather around, everybody. We're about to begin in a couple minutes. We're going live exactly at 1:30 p.m. Actually, that's in a couple seconds. What up, what up? We're about to begin in just a couple seconds. All right. Man, the questions are already rolling in, so let's begin. It's production time. I'm Reid Stefan Realest Puppet in the game. And today, I'm back with another live stream. Today's already May 18th, 2020. And right after this, I'm dropping a lo-fi beat tutorial. We're making an entire beat from scratch in Ableton. So, wow, there's a lot of people here already. Let's get to some questions. Let's go. Trackpad versus mouse, great question. Honestly, the new trackpad zooming that Ableton added made me love trackpads all over again. I used to plug a mouse into my laptop, and then they dropped that feature, and zooming in and out in Ableton and Premiere or any other DAW or app was so easy with the trackpad, so I gotta give it to trackpad over mouse. Let's see, tips for starting a vocal mix. Well, make sure that you start with a good recording. That means make sure you're not clipping or too quiet and in a room that is not noisy or echoey. Let's see, from there, make sure that you're appropriate distance from the microphone. My number one microphone tip for good recordings is use the microphone as your EQ. And that means the proximity effect. So the closer you get to the mic, the more bass your recording is gonna have. So if you're thinking, gee, my recordings sound thin, it's because you're too far from the mic. Get closer, turn the gain down a little bit, boom, you've got warmer vocals. And if you have the other problem where you're like, man, my vocals are kind of muddy and I'm having a hard time getting them sounding bright and clean, back up off the mic a little bit and you'll have brighter vocals. You can even turn the gain up a little bit too. So make sure you master the art of recording before you worry about your mix. Mixing voice in Studio One. I'd probably do the same thing that I would always do and just open the Waves Vocal Sauce template. Available at wholeloops.com. Thanks for starting the Discord, man. I appreciate it. Well, I appreciate you for joining the Discord, and if any of you guys are not in my Discord server yet, there's an entire community of really talented producers basically having a group chat in my Discord, and I have a link to that in the description of this live stream. So if you're not a member of my Discord, not only will you be in a group text basically with a bunch of really talented producers, including me, but you'll also have access to all my mashups, remixes, free MP3 downloads. So there's a whole lot of sauce in Discord. Again, link in description. Wow. A lot of questions today. Solution for boxy vocals. Well, if it sounds like you're in a box, it could be because you recorded in your closet thinking it'd sound like a vocal booth, but it actually sounds like a box. Either that or the room is just not very well acoustically treated for vocals. So I would maybe put a thicker carpet down on the floor, some acoustic treatment on the walls, and yeah, the boxiness is definitely coming from room reflections. So you're going to want to get rid of those. Is the Pensado EQ worth getting? Yes. That is such a mix hack. I especially love using it on groups. I use it on individual sounds too, but it really saves me time in my workflow when I throw it on a whole synth group or a whole drums group. Whole drums group. Let's see. I really need help taming my vocals. Many triple is amazing, but I'm still getting harsh vocals compared to the beat. And it's not cutting through. This could be because your beat doesn't have much space for a vocal to begin with. Maybe you need to dip out a frequency of your beat to carve out a space for your voice. Or another super hack plugin that I use is called Trackpad, and it's super cheap. And it basically EQs one sound based off of the sidechain input from another sound. So it basically carves out, if you put it on your guitar and sidechain it to the vocal, it'll carve a hole in your guitar for your vocal. Very, very handy. So that would be my number one recommendation for that. Put Trackpad on the beat when you're singing. Take it off when you're not singing. How to make vocal harmonies in Ableton? Wow, great question. I would definitely have to use Ableton plus some other plugin. It would be tough to make a really good convincing harmony with just the pitch shifting options in Ableton. How long does it take to learn to sound design? Easy. Just throw OTT on anything. That took 1 second. No, I'm just kidding. Well, it depends what sound you're trying to design. Dubstep sound design will probably take a lot longer than sound design for a hip-hop beat. And if you're trying to make things out of your own home recordings, then that's going to take the longest. I saw someone ask earlier about that, making drum kits and sound designing like for drums. That starts with recording and processing and learning the art of clipping stuff, making things louder without actually being louder on the meter, EQing things to jump out of the speakers. Yeah, sound design can really take a long time. Or like I said as a joke in the beginning, you can just throw OTT on it and it'll sound pretty cool too. So that's a great beginner hack. How can I get you to mix my track for real? Well, unfortunately, I only mix my own productions. I'm not taking outside songs. This is such a popular question. I usually get blown up all day by people asking me to mix their songs. So unfortunately, I have to say no to everybody and focus on this content because I think this content is helpful on a larger scale than taking the time to help one individual with their song. So I'm trying to focus all my efforts towards the masses. So unfortunately, I have no time to help individuals. Let's see, how do I get rid of single coil noise from guitar recordings? Probably Isotope RX denoise, or sometimes when you're recording guitars, if you move around the room a little bit, you'll find that one spot's a little quieter than another. So you might just have to go back and do a better recording, unfortunately. If a denoise plugin's not cutting it, you're going to recut it. What is OTT? That is a preset that comes with Ableton for the multiband dynamic effect. Multiband dynamics. And it's such a popular preset that people pretty much call the whole thing OTT, even though it's just a preset. And it squishes your sound in a way that no other plugin can. And it pretty much is the reason EDM sounds the way it does. Let's see. What's the best hardware compressor limiter for vocals on a budget price or preamp? just get an Apollo, use your Apollo to plug your mic straight in until you're popping enough to buy a nice vocal chain. Like what I have in my home studio video. Honestly, the preamp built into your Apollo will get you making dough. You can mix those vocals and have them sound fantastic. So you don't need the cheap thing. I feel like the cheap analog gear option is obsolete nowadays. UAD and all these plugins that emulate analog gear sound so good that I think you're wasting your time and effort by using cheap analog gear. You could definitely get a cheap analog gear sound from a plugin. So use your Apollo, use your plugins wisely, and save up your money for the real deal. Because you're just going to postpone yourself getting the quality you actually want by buying some cheap middle thing. Can you use SM7B in a non-treated room? Yes, that would actually be the only mic that might still sound decent in a non-treated room. Because any condenser mic is going to be way too sensitive, and you're going to hear that your room's not treated once you go to compress your vocal. So, yeah, SM7B is probably going to be your best option if your room doesn't sound good. But honestly, I don't think the SM7B sounds good if you're listening to the music charts. That's not what your vocal's going to sound like. Your vocal's going to sound a little bit more lo-fi than what you hear on the music charts if you use an SM7B. Please give us tips for 808 to be dominant on Ableton, trap, or rap music. So if you haven't noticed, in the last couple of years, songs have been going for a short 808. The long 808 has kind of taken a huge dip in popularity, and I think that has something to do with Spotify and the way that it treats dynamic mixes over long sustained loudness or squashed mixes. So what I'm trying to get at is short 808s are going to have a quick punch to it, and then it dips down in volume for the rest of your music to still be heard. So you'll notice that in a lot of rap music, just a really quick bump 808 instead of boom, you know? So go for the short 808 and then leave some room for the rest of your music to exist, because that 808 really does have to be the loudest thing in your whole mix to sound like music that's charting. How did you find your own unique sound? A lot of experimentation. I did not spend my time remaking other people's songs. And what would be another good suggestion? Take something that was not supposed to be a synth and make it a synth. You creating unique drum samples for your snare drum will automatically make you unique. So look at your sample selection and see what you can swap out for something more unique. And then use classic familiar sounds for your hats and, you know, whatever the other stuff is. What is your favorite vocal? Let's see. What hardware vocal chain is your favorite? Sony C800? Just go watch my studio tour. It'll be quicker for me to say that. Both my studio tours have the same answer in it. You'll see it. It starts with a Sony mic, ends with a tube tech going into an Apollo. And all the sauces for you to discover in between. And speaking of sauce, we're actually here to premiere the Lo-Fi beat tutorial, where I make a complete Lo-Fi beat in Ableton from scratch. And I even use the brand new Lo-Fi Sauce Ableton effect rack. And if you haven't tried Lo-Fi Sauce, it's basically RC20, but made out of Ableton stock plugins. It's really handy, so go check it out at Whole Loops. Or just stick around for the Lo-Fi beat tutorial in, 15 minutes, or 18 minutes. We're about halfway through the stream, so let's get back to the questions. Your favorite mastering compressor and additive EQ for ballad songs? Wow, that's a specific question. Favorite mastering compressor would probably just be Ozone, because you can do multi-band and just compress certain bands to taste, because on mastering, I'm not even trying to do that much. So if I'm doing compression, I'm just not even going to do it to the whole sound. I'm just going to do it to like the mids. And additive EQ. Channel EQ that comes with Ableton. That is a sauced up additive EQ. Or the Pensado EQ. Someone asked about that earlier. Another really saucy option. Dream collab. Ooh. Well. Actually, me and Kashmir have been working together on Kara's music. That's a dream collab right there. That's all coming out starting this summer too. We have a lot of really cool songs coming up that we've been making together. I don't know. I never really thought about a dream collab. I was always just kind of focused on the people around me and just doing the best for us, not really like trying to reach outward and bring someone in or be kind of with someone else. I was always trying to work on myself. Ableton or Logic? This is a great question. If you want instruments that come with your DAW that sound great, Logic. If you want plugins to mix with that come with your DAW that sound great, Ableton. Also, if you like making music from samples, Ableton. If you're more of like a musician and keyboard player, probably Logic. That's how I break it down. I guess if you're on a budget, Logic too, because it's cheapest. Why do people compress twice? Well, sometimes they like the sound of two compressors, but they don't want to do a lot, so they do a little bit with each. And then you get to use both. You end up at a different finish point when you spread the compression between two different sounding plugins versus just hitting one twice as hard. What about FL Studio? Oh, all the Fruity Loops warriors in the comments are triggered. I don't know. I think FL Studio is really confusing. I have been trying to use it, but every time I use it, I think I sound bad. But that's probably my fault because a lot of people sound good in FL Studio. I don't know. It's not intuitive. I think the most disorienting part about it is the fact that there's a different window for everything. Are you trying to mix something? Oh, you got to go to the mix window. You trying to edit your MIDI? Oh, that's the MIDI window. It's not open right now. You got to go get it. Oh, you're trying to change your instrument? You got to go to the instrument rack window. Everything's a different window. That bugs me. It doesn't seem like they like thought about it and then coded it. They just coded it and then added on unrelated stuff afterwards. Doesn't seem like an all-in-one thing. You feel like you have 20 different apps open when you have FL Studio open. But that's just my 2 cents. FL Gang, Patcher Gang. Patcher gives me nightmares. Ableton Audio Effect Rack is awesome. They do the same thing, but the user experience is very different. And I'll just leave it at that. Isn't it more organized? Yes, Ableton Audio Effect Rack is way more organized. When I make the same vocal chain that I have in Ableton Effect Rack in Patcher, it looks like a bird's nest. Literally a bird's nest. So if you open up one of my FL Studio presets, I recommend you just look at the front with the 8 pretty knobs, because if you hit the wrench button and look at all the plugins inside, you are literally opening up a bird's nest. So that's why I don't like Patcher. Literally, it's the same chain. It sounds the same. Have nothing to say about the sound quality. But one is a bird's nest under the hood, and one's very easy to look at. Windows over Apple? Probably not. I use iMessage all day long. I airdrop files from my computer to my phone all day long. I screen share with other Apple users so that I can control their mouse and talk to them all the time. I use Logic to open a lot of people's songs. I use Luna every day, actually. More as a utility. So these are all apps that you can't do in Windows that I use every day. So Windows is pretty useless to me. I have a Windows computer, but it's just to double check and make sure my products work on Windows. And then I close it and get back on my Apple computer where things are simple. Hey Reid, favorite mic on guitar? Sony C800, but if you don't have a budget like that, Sony C100. That's the sickest mic you can get for $1,000 by far. Sony C100. Just dropped in 2019, but it's sick. I highly recommend it. Do you offer music coaching or can you recommend? You are literally watching my music coaching right now, so I recommend you keep watching. Best Saturator. The one that comes with Ableton is good, but Black Box by Plugin Alliance is the best Saturator. Do higher sample rates matter? They matter to your CPU load, barely matter to your ear. That's about the simplest answer there is. Best cheapest mic for vocals. Depends what you consider cheap. My favorite cheap mic is the AKG C214. And you can buy those for about $300 new. Anything cheaper than that, it does not really matter, because they all will sound about the same. Let's see. How do you know if your vocals and song is mixed well and radio ready? Well, listen to it in between some songs that are already on the radio and then see what you think. If you're listening to your song by yourself and comparing it to your other songs, it's going to be hard to tell. So you're going to need to just take a look outwards and see how you compare. Best book you've ever read? What was it called? Tip of the Week by Martin Vorwerk. He made an entire book of producer tips. I actually talked to him back in like 2017 on my YouTube channel, and we talked about that book. Still my favorite. So go check out the Martin Vorwerk interview. Which plugin should I use for recording vocals with UAD? Manly Voxbox, the Avalon preamp, the Maag EQ, MAAG, sounds really good. Oh, and the Auto-Tune, duh. Is an AT2020 a good mic? Yeah. You can get good recordings with pretty much anything, including that one. Do you do one-on-one coaching? No, I do not. I only do things that help the masses. I think that's just a better way. Unfortunately, if I spent all my time helping individuals, this whole channel wouldn't exist and nothing that I do would happen. So unfortunately, I spend all my time making things that help the channel, help the community, the family. So unfortunately, no one-on-one sessions with the Realest Puppet in the game. How to extract vocals from a song to be able to remix it. I do that with Isotope RX Music Rebalance. And a big misconception with Music Rebalance is that you're going to be left with something that sounds like a clean acapella. That's not true. It's just going to reduce your music quite a bit so that when you produce new music over it, you don't really notice that there's actually two musics happening at the same time. I know that's not a word, but help me make the sentence shorter. Is there any way to get rid of those annoying copy and paste spammers? I'm not sure. Unfortunately, I tried that and they just keep coming back from different accounts. How much should you turn down the 2-track when mixing? Well, that's more when recording. I turn it down like -6 or -10, depending on how loud the beat is, so that when I have my mic on, it doesn't sound like it's getting overpowered by the beat. But when I'm mixing, I try and turn it all up as high as I can with the vocal playing so that the amount of clipping that you're getting doesn't sound bad. I would rather have some clipping and have it sound good than try and run it through a limiter and change the way the beat sounds. Because a little bit of clipping doesn't even really sound like anything. It sounds the same as not clipping. So you may as well just leave it sounding natural rather than trying to double limit your beat just because there's a vocal there. Thoughts on the Skrillex project peaking at -3 LUFS? I don't know. It's an EDM song, and he's going to play it on a CDJ. I don't think he cares how it sounds on Spotify. So that's probably why it's at -3. How loud should you record? As loud as possible without the meter turning red. I say try and record as close to the yellow as possible, but in the green. You don't want to be in the low green, you want to be up by the yellow. Let's see. How to prevent getting pops and clicks in recorded vocals. Try recording with less plugins going. It sounds like your CPU is overloading. Oh wow, we got 5 minutes until the lo-fi beat tutorial drops. We're going to be using Ableton to make a lo-fi beat from scratch, and we're even showing the brand new lo-fi sauce rack that I made entirely out of stock Ableton plugins. So stick around because in 4 minutes, we're going to be premiering that and watching that together. And I'll be answering your questions in the live chat comments of that video too, while we watch it together. Best resource for mixing fundamentals from scratch. Right here. Do you have a tutorial on balancing the levels? Pretty much every tutorial shows me balancing the levels. There's not really one tutorial I could say, here's your level balance, go. You're done mixing every song forever because you have the level balance now. That doesn't exist. So I balance the levels as I go in every video. How do you make a groove? Where do you start? Oh, you're about to see me do that in this video. I actually start by just randomly placing a MIDI note off the grid, just anywhere, and seeing if I like the swing that I just created by accident. And usually I do. What kind of headphones do I recommend? My Audio-Technica ATH-M50X or something like that. M50X is what I call them. I forget the numbers that come before it. I don't know. I hate when headphones got these long, dumb names. Are you summing in the box or out of the box? In the box. People see me with analog gear and they think I mix with analog gear, but I really don't. It's a vocal chain. I record a singer through it, and then I turn my analog gear off. And that's it. I don't use it to mix. I don't use it to master. I just use it to record singers. Do you use Pro Q2? Yes, I do. Sometimes I open an old session and still has Pro Q2 in there. I don't see any reason to swap it out for 3. I just leave it there. Best vocal EQ. Well, the best vocal EQ is probably the EQ on the hardware that you record through, because that's going to do my low cut and a little bit of a high shelf to make my vocal brighter before I even record it. But if you're talking about plugins, probably CLA vocals. Those first 3 sliders in CLA vocals, they do parallel compression, but That top slider is a really nice EQ, so I'm going to give it to CLA Vocals. Oh, and we got less than a minute until the Lo-Fi beat premieres. So I'm just going to take one more question. Do your neighbors complain about the loud music sometimes? They used to when I lived in an apartment. I swear I was one noise complaint away from getting evicted, so I moved to a house. And I've had no complaints since. So we out here. And thank you so much for participating in today's question and answer live stream. I'm Reid Stefan Realest Puppet in the game, and right now I'm premiering a lo-fi beat, so just head back to my channel, click the lo-fi beat tutorial, and I'll keep answering your questions in the comment section of my upcoming tutorial premiere. And for everyone watching this live stream replay in the future, I'll put the link in the description. So peace out, everybody, and I'll catch you next time in another tutorial.